Recently, I've been debating how my life could be if I'd never thought of going back to university, if I'd never thought to take a risky opportunity to make the most of my intelligence and creativity. I've had my nose to the grindstone repeatedly, earning only slightly more than what the man was taxing me, and if my blood, sweat and tears were a currency, I'd be a millionaire by this point pretty easily. And believe me, this change has taken more than its fair share of plasma and perspiration in overcoming the abundant complications in patching up a 12-month gap in my education. So maybe I ought to offer up an explanation for my deviation from the path pointing me at qualifications. I was an achiever, I was exceeding expectations, but with everything I learned I couldn't help but foster irritation. See, I lost patience with the so-called scribes who derided my lines but whose writing was worse than mine, who criticised the literary workings of my mind because they never took the time to try and bring their views in line with mine, but rather they canonised what they called classic authors and wouldn't dare to dip a toe to test the tides of new poetic waters. They told me poetry was only for the page and only ignoramus failures had to publish on the stage. I couldn't take those limitations as a poet, that my passion should be rationed in a fashion that they deemed appropriate, to bind my mind to pages dead as graves upon a shelf when my lungs and tongue and lips were so much better for expressing myself. Such depressing perspectives on prospective futures made me doubt the definitions devoutly spouted by my tutors. There was so much more potential than they could possibly perceive, and if they couldn't satisfy me, then I guessed I had to leave. And so I quit. I split from the crowd of literatis who perceived themselves as artists, and I went looking for an alternative. I tried a tourniquet around my severed learning, dropped the burden of my worries from that bridge as I was burning it. Still had a yearning to manipulate the wording of my verses in a fashion more performative and personal, but couldn't find an opportunity. The unis wanted something more professional and called me unconventional. So I was quickly losing confidence, convinced of my incompetence, and consequently lost my inspiration. I couldn't scribe a single stanza without substantial aggravation, and my frustration at my amateurish status had my spirits breaking. But then I heard a certain rumour circulating that Leicester had a reputation on the rise for giving rise to poetry nights and spending time to make it live when others probably might not be inclined to try. And since I feel inclined to pen a line and distribute it on the mic, I thought that maybe I could try to catch the vibe. So I spent the night in Leicester listening to lyrics and spent the next day into Montfort checking modules out and meeting tutors. And it was beautiful. Far more than simply suitable. I felt like I was destined to descend on Leicester as a student. I breezed through every interview and made it clear that I would do whatever it took to put myself in as an undergraduate. And please believe me when I say I wouldn't be standing here today without the aid of these events to keep me feeling passionate. To go from feeling like I couldn't write a single verse to getting praise for my performances, it almost seems absurd. And even though de Montfort was what got my attention first, I know I wouldn't stay in Leicester if it wasn't for the Y in word. And so this is basically my way of saying thank you to the city and the people who have helped me find some brighter days and offered me a second chance when everybody else had laughed and told me life was over and that I'd never get to graduate. And now I'm only months away from standing on a crowded stage in robes and taking photos with a diploma in my chosen discipline. And I'm so happy I was capable of making it, I felt compelled to spell it out in poetry. So thanks for listening.